Oh, yes, we saw these boys, the Southern River Band, shirtless with Mark McGowan down at the ACDC Festival over the weekend. I absolutely pissed myself laughing at that photo. Mark McGowan and Roger Cook down there with their ACD black T-shirts on. They wouldn't have known what they were doing at a rock concert, but those boys certainly do. The Southern River Band boys, Shelter FootyCast here, live from BackChat Studios as usual. Mark Reddings, Will Schofield with you. How are you, Skeeter?
Yeah, a little bit flat this morning, Scully. I'll just
no.
say, just a little bit flat. I was lying in front of the TV 2 nights ago and just watching a bunch of commercials. And I don't know why, but there's this ad that came up and it was talking about, retirement villages and Puparama and people swimming in pools and floaties. Lots of, yeah. No. And then if you're over 50, this lifestyle, I thought, this is me. I'm cooked. 50 over, you're in retirement village.
They're getting you down to the retirement village.
Well, that's what they're offering. I mean, I'm still thinking that I'm, doing some carpool karaoke, bit of Cardi B action, doing some Eminem in the car.
Have we sourced this footage
Well,
yet?
it's been cut. Yeah, it'll be available. Don't worry. I haven't even looked at it, but they.
So
reckon
what was your immediate reaction, lying on the couch?
I said, I'm. Have you seen Succession?
No.
Well, Logan Roy says F off quite a bit, so that was my immediate reaction. Anyway, I'm okay. And I need to quickly give a shout out to one of our loyal listeners and viewers.
Your fans.
Your
fans.
Yeah, she did describe me as handsome and charming.
Oh, boy.
No, I made that up. Ash Gomes. Now, she's playing her 100th game in the Waffle W on Saturday against Subiaco. It's the a big achievement. I think it's the A team match, or A match, which is raising funds for a very worthy cause that East Fremantle and Subiaco are getting involved in there. But, she's a listener, Ash Gomes, a 100th match, real listener of the Shelter FootyCast.
I know exactly who Ash is, right? So it's A-team round. East
A-team,
Fremantle v Subiaco Lions. It is the TBC 1D24 Foundation.
A rare genetic condition, yes.
That's right. So people with this condition all present with similar but all different symptoms. Aurelia's main challenge, so they're raising money for a little girl.
Yep.
So she,
I think it's Aurelia and Italiano.
Yep. So she frequently loses her muscle tone and becomes paralysed. So they're putting this together. The girls.
Terrific stuff.
Ash is a legend. Huge fan. I interviewed her. Was it with you?
No, it wasn't with me.
We were on SCN Sports Day when I was over there.
Oh, maybe it was.
And interviewed Ash, and she very quickly gave BackChat and the Shelter FootyCast a shout out over on the Rival. So it was very good. Big fan of Ash and what they're doing down there. So if you can, make sure you get down to the girls' game.
Yep.
East Freo, Subiaco Lions, Saturday, 13th of May. So this Saturday.
2 o'clock, I think, bounce down, or 2:10.
Colts from 9, Reserves 11:30, Waffle W from 2, Waffle Men's 4:10. Going to be a huge day down there.
Yeah, g'day to Ash. I love her work.
Very good. Well done, Skeeter. That's about the first time you've given some credit to our fans, mate. So congratulations. Shelter FootyCast on socials. You can follow us there, like Ash. Send us an email, footycast@shelterbrewing.com.au. YouTube going absolutely off its bananas, Skeeter, going nuts. And this week, of course, and on Thursdays, we do the Bottom Art Roughie of the week. So make sure, if you can, just to get outside your parameters.
We've been crap at it, and you've been no better than me.
It's a roughie, mate. It's a roughie. You need to pick a roughie. Right?
So if I get beat by 100 points, there's no drama?
Yeah, well, I want you to just get off the fence a little bit.
That's an easy one.
Is that okay?
No problems at all.
You've worn your Ralph Lauren's in here today, all right? So to match me, hey? Is that what you're doing?
Are these Ralph Lauren?
I don't know. I see some sort of horse on the
My wife bought them. I've got no idea.
Oh, very good. Let's get into it. Let's talk about footy. A bit of action at the Tribunal over the last few days. We've seen suspensions. So Brad Close, he challenged. No good. We saw Junior Rioli last night, which I found hilarious. So he was directed straight to the Tribunal. It seems like a late sitting, right, on a Wednesday night.
Yeah, game that was Sunday.
But it was because it was late. It was directed straight to the Tribunal. It wasn't a challenge. So basically, you usually walk out of there with 3 or more weeks. That's why it was referred straight to the Tribunal. They effectively challenged and got it brought down to 2 weeks on the strike on Jordan Ridley. One of the arguments used by Junior's legal counsel was Jordan Ridley effectively ran into Junior's fist.
Yeah,
so just like on The Simpsons.
Can happen.
Bart Simpson walking through his bedroom saying, I'm going to throw my arms around like this. If you happen to get hit, it's your fault. That's pretty much what he did. And he got it down. 2 weeks for Junior for that one. JVR, Jacob Van Rooyen, he'll be challenging tonight. So he's challenging the Tribunal's decision.
Yeah, so obviously.
So he was given 2 weeks.
Yep.
He then challenged that to the tribunal.
Appeal process.
He's now appealing the tribunal decision. How do you see? We've spoken a little bit about it. How do you see that one?
I think I'm just looking at the vision I've seen, and again, AFL might come back to me and say, or anyone say, look, these are the parameters we work on, not about what you think you see. But from the optics were, he was a little stiff to get 2 weeks, given the football nature of it. But we've discussed that. Whether he gets off, it's a big week for a young bloke that has. Well, I've seen him play a bit of footy. There's no malice in his body at all. It was just I think everyone would agree it was an unfortunate incident, and where it sits now, we had Jonathan Brown saying it's, the start of the victim of litigation of what's happening with the AFL moving forward.
It's been more than Jonathan Brown saying that, because they feel like the AFL is protecting themselves around future litigation, which may or may not be true, given what's happening already with some of the concussion lawsuits happening right now. But I would say, regardless of that, this is a football action. I think Jimmy Bartell, I've seen a lot of people speak about this. He nailed it. Almost every physical contest you go into on a football field, there is a risk that someone gets injured, right? And what the tribunal decision, if we just take emotion out of it, what the tribunal decision asked Jacob Van Rooyen in this instance was a reasonable player acting like you did. You should have known that you were going to injure your opponent. Now, Jimmy's right. Every contest you go into, there is a risk that someone gets injured, whether their head gets whiplashed off you into someone else, whether they put their body in a slightly different position, whether in JVR's circumstance you miss the ball by a millimetre, whether you're taking a hanger on someone's head and you knee them in the back of the head. These are all things that people can get injured doing. If players are expected to assess that
in a split second
before you think back to Nick Nananui when he tackled some poor little kid out
Adelaide.
The field, whoever that was.
Was it Carl Amon?
Got destroyed.
And the boundary line,
destroyed him.
Yeah.
But the argument there was the same. It was you need to consider the weight of you.
Consequences.
Get the abacus out in the field, Skeeter.
I agree.
Off. So, mate, I can't see how this holds up. It doesn't make any sense. Just from a physics point of view. Like, you can't make these sorts of decisions out in the field. No, absolutely not, Skeeter. This is in my area. This is a bullshit call by the tribunal, and if it doesn't get overturned, there's going to be a bit of anarchy, I think. Anyway, we'll move on.
It'll be anarchy until Friday night when they bounce the ball and we get back to it. No, I know what you're saying. Yeah. It is a difficult one to understand it, and I've actually bow to you guys, because you guys know the speed of the game, what goes through your head. It's you don't have asking a lot.
You don't have enough time to worry about. I would say maybe it's a wrong example for you, but commentating, right? When you're in the heat of the action, it's a big moment. You're clearly not trying to disrespect or hurt anyone's feelings, but maybe in a big incident where something happens, something comes out of your mouth that you're like, oh, gee,
he smashed it.
Didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, instead of maybe the collision. Yeah.
You're not getting a 2-week ban for that, and it's easy to do, and you probably shouldn't be. Sometimes shit happens. Seriously, that's sometimes what we need to look at for the AFL, I think. Anyway, booing saga. I don't know how much more we can keep talking about this. Buddy Franklin doesn't give a shit. He's already said that.
Mate, I've seen Matthew Pavlich go and put an article in The Age, and seriously, we know that if it's any semblance of racial activity surrounding it, chop it out.
Yeah.
Cut its head off straight away. I've got no issue with that. I still don't see that there was any evidence by a small minority and Buddy didn't even hear it.
No, correct. But regardless of that, I think it's too far. Do what you like with respect at the footy. I think fans should be able to get into players.
And boo, yeah, of course.
I think you should be able to get into players.
Are you comfortable with the Jason Horne-Francis thing, which will unfold this weekend?
Boo him. Yeah. Boo him. Gaffy when he plays Freo.
Every time.
Mate, I've said this for years.
Well, Pav hasn't come out and said that Fremantle fans shouldn't boo Gaff.
If you correct, right? So if I know Gaffy well, and he has accepted the fact that he's going to get booed for the rest of his career against
Tom
Fremantle.
Stewart said tomorrow night he expects to be booed, and he deserves to.
Dion Prestia came out and said, don't boo him. Shut up, Dion. Seriously, the Geelong and Richmond fans could do what they like.
Exactly.
Sam Mitchell coming out telling Hawthorn fans to not boo. Shut up, Sam.
Why am I agreeing with you all this? But I do. I totally
let people do what they want, mate.
Mate, well, within. I mean, you can't be shouting out.
I know. but
insults and swearing at a player, that's just not called for. But I think it's part of the theatre. It's like going to the basketball, a free throw, boo.
So you can't insult players. So I was down the goal square down in Tasmania one week, right? And I genuinely had blokes following me from end to end, calling me solar panels because the receding hairline, the front of my head looked like 2 solar panels, and I was powering the entire of Tasmania by the end of this game, right? It was very good banter. Mate, and they were abusing the shit out of me.
Yeah.
I looked at them, pissed myself laughing. They're on the beers. What am I meant? Am I meant to call the AFL integrity unit and say, I'm getting abused down in Tasmania, I don't want games there anymore? I feel as like we're going there.
It feels like what the experts and the former players are saying to us is the racial stuff is complete out of bounds, which we agree. No one disputes that. Now they're starting to say individual players.
Legends of the game.
Individual players should...
Tom Stewart's a good player, don't boo him.
Yeah, exactly, because of what he did last year. He deserves to get a bit of a hoot.
How many weeks? He get 4 weeks.
He's got 4 weeks, yeah.
Boo him.
And he's not a criminal, but by the same token, you're trying to get inside their head.
Yeah.
It's for me, I just think, take a deep breath. If Buddy thought it was racially motivated, which to my understanding, he hasn't even entered down that path yet, and I don't think they should boo him, but guess what? If they booed him when he was a Hawthorn player against Sydney, there's vision of that.
Oh, yeah. Don't worry, mate. We're on the same page.
We're a shit show, seriously.
You wanted to speak about the taunting rules. So we saw this from Eddie Maguire a little bit.
Yeah, so he did on Footy Classified. I've actually, we both follow NFL, and I've often thought, and you probably have thought, would that actually work in some form in the AFL? Look, they already have a situation where if you infringe after a goal's kicked or something happens, you can give away another free kick. So there are rules in place. But Eddie wants to basically bring in a taunting rule, which...
This is off the back of the Dacos stuff.
Dacos, where he was arguing that Josh Dacos, who went in to fly the flag for his brother, was fined $1,000 when, in fact, the Sydney players attacked him. There's been cases of it. We've seen Michael Gardner going back many years. Bulldogs attacked him, essentially, before the first bounce. Jack Watts, famously, in a Queen's birthday match at the MCG, Collingwood players really got stuck into him. Eddie thinks that perhaps, a bit like the NFL, where we know that if you are penalised for taunting, which generally happens after a player gets the better of an opposition player and you either score a touchdown or you stop them in their tracks.
Well, NFL, there's not the in-ground interaction, right? Because they're either side, there's a line down the middle of them. They don't hang around each other unless they're in that period of play.
But there's some demonstrative actions you see, which causes a 15-yard penalty, first down, and that's where I think Eddie thinks we need to be more proactive.
But that's more vocally and, standing over the top of someone and they do the big flex, the Mark Reddings flex over the top. In terms of the taunting and the physical, like the stuff that Papley was doing, I personally like that. I think it worked against Nick Dacos. He had 16 touches up to three-quarter time, had no impact on the game, and I've been asking for it for weeks, and someone does it, and they were in the game because of it. So you can't tell me that it had no impact on the game. So to take things away, like, you don't call it taunting, but the physical, getting into someone, getting 10 blokes around him, you can't tell me that didn't work.
No, but it also, and so I disagree with Eddie on this because, in essence, if they infringe in that sort of ban, they're prepared to give up a free kick, let's be honest, by doing that.
Yeah.
It's short-term pain to hopefully get into his head. So, you don't want blokes getting whacked and punched behind play and all that stuff which is targeting, which hopefully is picked up by the relevant authorities. But
there's a line, though.
Yeah, there's a line. But
punch people, but I think elbowing them in the back of elbows, elbowing them.
It is a man's game, and I don't want to sound too, like caveman stuff, but the blokes are professional footballers.
Yes.
You're playing for sheep stations as opposed to...
That's a genuine tool that defenders and antagonistic players use.
Stephen Baker.
Talk about Hayden Ballantyne, mate.
Yeah, of course.
Ryan Crowley. Talk about these guys. It's not Cameron Ling, mate, one of the best taggers of all time. These are genuine tools that people use. I'm going to tell you because I used to do it. So if you take that stuff away, like it gets further into like a video game. And the AFL 23, I tell you what, that's going from strength to strength, that piece of shit. But it turns into this video game, which would be similar to what we see in that. No one's tackling, everyone's just running around, do their thing. It's skillful basket. It's basketball.
But rewind just a fraction, just before we wrap this up. The Dacos thing you're happy with, the Rory Lobb, where Fremantle players and the club were absolutely whacked over the head with the way they went about it because they lost the game.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, but they can still do it. So that didn't work.
But the consequences,
Lobb. Lobb was prepared for it, and it looked like it actually steeled him a little bit. But that's the risk you take.
Yeah.
That's just like, for me, I don't know, like when you used to take 6-6 out of it, if you used to put someone behind the play and then they were kicking it over your head for a goal, like it's a strategy. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Coming out the front of centre bounces, really being aggressive. You stuff it up, the other team goes the other way.
Looks stupid, yeah.
You go hard at a player, sometimes they love that. Like Buddy Franklin, if you targeted him, he would kick 10. He would genuinely just go, all right, boys, you want to target me? Watch this.
Well, no different in cricket. I love my cricket. Steve Waugh, if someone tried to verbal him while he's at the crease, it was a dumb move because he would mentally just
But that's the art of it, right? Yeah. That's the art of it, knowing who to go at. And then sometimes you get it wrong, just starting positions as a backman. Like it's a part of the game, and I would hate to see that come out of it. Will Schofield, Mark Reddings, shout out FootyCast. Let's get into the Western side of things. We've got a Friday night footy, Skeeter. Hey, you know what that means? Saturday off.
No, it is good. We like Friday footy. 6:40. It's a double header, which I don't. People are jumping up and down. Doesn't really worry me. Richmond Geelong's no blockbuster either. So, but yeah,
that's true.
Eagles. I'm not sure when they fixtured this year. I don't think this will be their last Friday night game for the year, mind you. They're not getting close to it. They're not getting close to it for the rest of the year.
The MCG, so it is a crossover. So the MCG starts 5:20 here, and the 6:40 game at Optus. People in Perth, because it's always catered for over east, it's usually a 5:20 start here for night games.
Yeah, well, on Saturday. Saturdays is different. Friday, they try and make it 6:10 or 6. It is a little bit later to give you that but it's still early.
But just think about in Melbourne,
trying to get to the MCG.
7:20, 7:30. That's when footy starts. So people here complain about it being too late, but it's still like an hour earlier than Melbourne ever gets.
Actually, I disagree. I think people argue that it's always too early here because trying to get from work, it's really tough. And the same would apply to people in Melbourne, but we understand we're on the West Coast.
So 6:40 could be a good one.
Yeah, I mean, will they get a crowd? Will they get 50,000 for the Gold Coast?
Oh, look, I hope so. I mean, Friday night footy, if I'm a fan, go down, get on the beers with your mates. Like, I don't know. What else are you going to the footy for? Like, I understand winning and losing is a big thing, but if you've got a membership and
might as well use it.
Mate, get down there, have a good time. Friday night and then kick on in the city. Absolutely.
Go bananas.
We've got the same mindset. Your 50 days won't be up Friday night, though. So
I'm going to do one more day, but I'm going to do some work on Saturday, but that's okay.
You did tell me. What did you tell me before we started? What might you do Saturday?
Oh, well, I might just
have a couple of shelters.
I might have a couple of shelters. Go home, 3 o'clock, I'm off air doing radio, and then I might have a couple of shelters, and I might just go and see my mate at the shoe who I haven't seen for 50 days and just knock back.
If you want to go and see Skeeter in his element, head down to the shoe Saturday night. West Coast, Gold Coast, 6:40 start. Look, I've gone yesterday on Fox Footy, I do a cross just from next door to us right here, Skeeter, and 3 weeks in a row my audio has dropped.
Yes.
So basically, you get an audio feed through a phone and you get the video feed through your laptop. And my microphone's connected to the laptop so they can hear me and I can see them through my laptop, but I can only hear them through the phone.
You wanting some help from me on the technical side?
I'm just telling you what happened, right? So 3 weeks in a row now, halfway through the interview, the people that have made the phone call have hung the phone line up and not rung me back. So it's been 2 weeks. I'm on live TV, middle of an interview. The first week it happened, I shit myself. And so they still think I can hear him. And Drew Jones is chatting away. And the first time I just put my hands up and said,
sorry, guys.
Can't hear you, Drew. Sorry, mate. And the producers got some overlay and cut me out and no one rang me back. This week, which was last night, I thought, if this happens again, I've got to be prepared. Anyway, lo and behold, halfway through the interview, bang, hung up again. And I could see Drew asking me the question, and I'm sitting there doing these ones.
Nodding head as you do,
right? Yeah. And then I just gone, Drew, it's happened again, mate, but don't worry, I don't need you for the show. And I just went on a rant for like 4 minutes, right? I had all this stuff and I was just popping them off. And one of the things I said, the reason for this story, I think West Coast can win. So my bottom art roughie of the week is West Coast again. Bottom art roughie of the week, Scully, start your footy weekend at Bottom Art. Grab your shelters where Bottom Art has you covered. You can get down there Friday night before the game, after the game. I don't know how you float your boat. I think West Coast going to win.
Yeah, well, they've won 3 out of 35 or 36 or whatever it is.
They're going to win sometime.
They do. And they had, look, I think was it round 1 last year? Was it only last year they got beaten by the Gold Coast here?
Yes.
Remember the injuries and COVID and God knows what. And no Took Miller. I'm going to ask you a question because the result obviously is neither here nor there from a overall perspective. Jack Darling, he'll be selected, obviously. I know you've said he's a pure forward. Maybe during the course of a game, I think, I saw him against Richmond, and he's down on form. He's out of confidence at the moment, that's fine. Yep. Could you not play him in a different role, just even for a quarter, a half, to try and mix up, just in a different, for him, approach to the game, maybe behind the ball, something to, because it just looks like a record going round and round with Jack at the moment. I know he's great at foil for Oscar Allen, which Mark LaCroix pointed out to me that's the reason Oscar's, in part, that he's having a good year. Because,
which it is.
Yeah, in part, but end of the day, you're trying to get Jack back into form. Could you not, is there some other role, not for the whole game, but just to try and get him into the game?
The only other role I would have Jack playing is backup ruck. Put him as secondary ruck and just say, treat him like it's a one-on-one contest,
like a mid round the ground.
Yeah, but and this is no knock, because Jack does things great. You wouldn't put me forward, right? Because I was a defender, couldn't kick goals. I talk shit all the time, but you wouldn't play me forward.
No,
Jack's not a.
He's a one-trick pony, you're saying, but a very good one.
Well, he does things very well. Contested marking, his forward craft, goal kicking. He's a forward.
But he's not at the moment. That's the question.
Okay, so he's not good around the footy.
Okay.
He does not use his body and his strength like a midfielder. He coughs the ball up when he's in contested situations. You can't have someone in the midfield. And I don't think he reads the ball well enough behind the footy, even though we haven't seen him do that. He needs to be in front of the footy. I don't think it's a bad thing to say he's a forward who's out of form. You can't just put him in the back line. He literally, you could not trust him in the back line, and I don't think he'd be good enough to be playing in the midfield. The only way you could do it would have him as a second backup ruckman who wrestles his opponent, tries to get going forward. But even then, I just think you got to stick it out. Some people,
So a bit like David Warner. And David Warner's had a terrible run.
Yep.
And I'm not trying to get under Jack's skin here and try and get him out of the side. But if they had less injuries, and maybe say Jack Williams, just as an argument, was had the spleen. If he was up and running, would there be real pressure on Jack to hold his spot on the side?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if they had 40 people to choose from, yeah, probably.
Okay.
But they don't, so...
You keep playing because of their circumstances.
Yeah, and he's a good enough player to work himself out of it. You don't always play in form, and then it gets highlighted when there's no one else to put pressure on you and the team's playing poorly.
Yep.
These sorts of things get spoken about. Again, I'm pretty balanced on it. I don't think his career has anything to do with, he's had a great career. Who cares? He's a good player. He's not playing well.
But try and change. Anyway, my suggestion, try to change it up somehow.
If you're a good player, you only need one game to turn it around. If you're aspiring to be a good player and show consistency, then yeah, maybe you do it. But Jack's a good player. He just needs time and get shit out.
You're not getting ball inside 50. They're a poor side this year. So there's other factors weighing into how he's going.
West Coast were good last week against the Tigers for a period. Gold Coast went down by 5 points to Melbourne. You think Gold Coast is going to win?
Yeah, I think Gold Coast. I mean, you just have to. I know you've put them as your roughies of the week, but I'm bottle them up. But I'm thinking Gold Coast, even without Touk Miller, still good enough. Jared Witts, I know you've been big on him.
Yeah, he's a great player. He's one of probably the top three ruckmen in the competition.
Noah Anderson, really good game last. I think they've got too much quality for the Eagles.
Anderson. Oh, sorry, I thought you said Noah Anderson.
Noah Anderson.
Noah. Gun. Yep. I mean, eyes will be. I can tell you one thing: eyes will be all over
Matty Rowell
pre-game. There will be 1,000 phones on him. I feel sorry for him. The best thing I had during the week was, okay, we can't boo Matt Rowell, but can we
moo?
Thank you. Very good, Skate. Now, West Coast. I want this stat because I've seen a lot of others speaking about West Coast, especially Tom Barrass. I think I mentioned this briefly, a little drive-by. Some people have been coming at him for his defensive efforts. Right, maybe the start of the year. I think he's in terrific form currently, and I didn't really have a problem with his form to start the year. West Coast have lost just 21% of defensive one-on-one contests, ranking them third in the competition.
That's extraordinary. Well, they've got a fair chance to get that percentage either right or wrong, haven't they?
Well, they have, but given how they're playing, that should be they should be losing them, mate, because they haven't had the pressure required in the midfield and around the ground. I think that says a lot about the way they're playing. So that's why I'm picking them. I think they're going to be competitive. I think they're going to be in the game. I think it's a long trip for Gold Coast, and I've got them winning.
Okay, fair enough. That's your roughie of the week, though, isn't it?
It is. Sydney v Fremantle, 11:45 Saturday, SCG. This is a tough ask for Freo. Even though Sydney have been playing without players in their side, they may get a couple back, given Will Gould is been in and out, but Warner is a chance to come in. Not the one that always plays, but his other little brother might come in. They don't have many big returns. Peter Laddams is a potential out. Maybe Tom Hickey is ready to come back in, but they're sort of scraping the barrel at the moment, like West Coast are.
Not a bad time to get Sydney. They were pretty good against Collingwood, to be honest with you. They should have been further in front at half time. As you say, they've got a couple of they've had injury concerns all year, to be honest. Fremantle, look, their record in Sydney, most teams struggle in Sydney, but they're certainly more gettable at the moment, the Swans. They've won just 2 of their last 15 games at the SCG.
Yes.
That's a number which, I don't know, in the old days, you used to try and alter the training surface size before you went there.
The cones come in. Sometimes the bunting they used to bring in to visual effect of the SCG. It's definitely different when you're playing on there. I mean, the length. Right? It's visually noticeable. At the 50s touching the centre square. So as a backman, when you're usually standing sort of at the top of the 50-metre arc, you've got 10, 15, 20 metres sometimes in front of you.
You feel pretty like a small.
Oh mate, five steps forward and you're in the clearance. So that it's a big thing, and Sydney play it really well. It's the most unique ground in the AFL.
No question. And look, I think the question mark from a Fremantle perspective, I don't think they'll make any change, which is any changes. That's a nice situation to be in. Nat Fyfe, I would have no issue with him starting as a sub again.
That's the rumour.
Is that the rumour? Is it? Okay. No, only because he played 38 minutes, kicked a goal, 10 possessions. I've got no issue with him doing a similar type of a job until otherwise.
They'd be happy with that. And look, if it means he comes on for an injury halfway through the game, you know what he can do, and you can start him forward, you can put him in the midfield a bit. It's probably better for him, really. And no doubt he adds an element of leadership to that group as well. Been captain for a long time. No, he's not this year, but it almost looks, and I know he hasn't played, but it looks, and speaking to him, it's been like the valve's been released a little bit. He looks a little freer. Not particularly in front of goal, as we spoke about on Monday. But Nat Fyfe, if he's the sub again, Will Brodie was very good for Peel in the weekend, and so was Nathan Wilson.
Not sure that Wilson won't get back in the side in the short term. And interesting, Brodie's the fascinating player at the club who's not getting a game. Jackson, terrific last week, got the maximum votes from, or certainly coaches' votes wise from Justin Longmuir, so he was wrapped with him. Or the Brayshaw, if he can continue that type of form, would be interesting.
He looked like he did last year in that game, but again, it's against a Hawthorn side that allows that.
Yeah, it was a soft kill, so I think you've got to bear that in mind. Sydney, their season's just about, well, put it this way, they only the same number of wins as Freo, aren't they? Their season's cooked.
I was going to ask you, that the loser of this game, I think the winner still has a chance to make the 8. I think the loser potentially doesn't.
Well, I think
this is a huge game.
I think both sides, and I'm going to be a bit more strident, I think both sides won't make the 8. I think they're both cooked.
Fremantle have Geelong and Melbourne to follow this game. They've got a tough run. For them to have any chance, they need to win this game.
Yeah, glass half full, you're right. If they win this, you can make a case mathematically possible, as they say, Scully. But I think just Sydney at their home ground, unless there's the compelling evidence is that they were good enough last week, I think, to beat Freo.
The word on the street is a little bit that Fremantle have been very reactive from a game plan perspective. They haven't been consistent with how they play against sides. They've been trying to change the way they play. What they did against Brisbane, handballed the most in a quarter, more than any team in a quarter this year.
Well, they're third in the comp for this year for handballs, I think.
But they kick long, so they're the number one in the comp for long kicks this season. So I think they're really struggling for identity at the moment with the way they play, and that happens when you're not playing your best footy. You're trying to tweak things, you're trying to move guys out, you're dropping guys, you bring players into the side that don't usually play in positions, and you're trying to get everyone going. So that's why they've been inconsistent. I'd like Fremantle off the back of last week to go back to the way that they play, which is built on defence, but they need to have a quicker element to the way they play, which last year they had elements. If you remember, you remember Jordan Clark and O'Driscoll and Walker and all these guys, they used to get to the middle of the ground and then they'd be gone. That's what we've missed a bit at the start of this year. We saw it on the weekend a little bit.
Yep.
I'm picking Sydney.
Yeah, I'm picking the Swans as well. I was impressed by Fremantle, but not overly impressed by Hawthorn. So I think Sydney might just strangle them, as they have done so many times in Sydney.
Will Schofield, Mark Reddings, Shelter FootyCast. Well, let's get into the rest of the round, Skeeter. Another Friday night game, as we mentioned, 5:20. It'll be the first game of the weekend. Richmond, Geelong. Traditionally, this would be an absolute ball terror, blockbuster, put your glass down and watch this one, it's not at the moment. Richmond's not in their best form. But can they rise to the occasion? Do they have enough players in their side that are premiership players, some dual, some triple? There's still guys there that can play footy. Can they steel themselves enough to rise to the challenge of Geelong? I personally think they can. I think this is the sort of game that Dimmer Hardwick gets them up for. Friday night footy, MCG. It doesn't get much bigger than this against Geelong, reigning premiers. I think this is a scalp that, look, I know Richmond, they've won 2 games this year, but I still think they have enough quality to take it up to a Geelong side.
I think they can do it in patches. They've shown it all year. They can play really good footy in patches, and that might be 2 quarters, it might be 3 quarters. But there's so many matches you can go back to this season and go, that's why they've had such a poor season, really, up to now, is they haven't been able to have continuity with the consistency levels in their footy. I mean, Shea Bolton last week, 31 touches, my man, showed a bit. Dion Prestia had that brilliant spell, 3 goals in 5-10 minutes.
His 200th game this week.
200th game. So, yeah, right, they've got the quality there. They have got the quality. I think you're right. I think it's a match they can actually push the Cats. But I think Geelong quality, even though Danger's not going to be there, Brad Close, who I'm told at the Tribunal hearing, there's a very long Tribunal hearing, which would probably tell us why we don't have televised Tribunal hearings.
The lawyer of Geelong printed out 27 slides and was making everyone watch through every one of them.
Anyway, so they've got a couple out. I think they won 12 of their past 15 at the G at Geelong. I've told you about Richmond. I'm off them, but I don't discount what you're saying about...
Richmond are pretty good at the G as well.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, but they've won... How many games have they won this year?
2.
2, yeah. So we're up to almost halfway mark of the season. The evidence, the form, the trend, as they say, is not great for them.
We're a third of the way through the season. I mean, I know it's almost halfway, but it's a third.
Well, bottom line is they beat the Eagles by 40-odd last week.
Yep.
Bit like Fremantle, not convinced that's a great gauge against a team that has at least 3 or 4 pegs up in terms of what they'll offer. Friday night victory to Geelong, but not by a huge margin.
I'm picking Geelong as well. Cochin to come back in for Richmond. Since round 3, the Cats have conceded 321 disposals per game, the least in the AFL. So even though they're an offensive-based side, they strangle teams, and they do that by keeping the footy away from them. So, look, I think they're going to have a really massive effort in the middle of the ground. I think the fact that it's a milestone game for Dion Prestia, they got Dusty Martin in the side, Jack Riewoldt playing. I still think they make this a competitive game, but I do pick Geelong. If Geelong wins this, they move into the top 4 after all the carry-on, probably from you and I as well.
Yeah.
About, you've done and dusted to all the same shit as last year, basically. Well, and they may go on to win every game for the rest of the season like they did last year. We both picked Geelong. North Melbourne v Port Adelaide, 12:10, Saturday, Blundstone. Chazzy.
The JHF match.
Yeah, true. Oh, sorry, before we move on, I promote booing Tom Stewart in the last game. I genuinely promote it. He is Geelong's best player.
He promoted it. He said, I deserve it.
He is their best player. Dion Prestia, the guy he hit and got suspended for 4 weeks, he's playing his 200th game. Richmond fans, what are you about? I reckon get into him.
They'll definitely get into him. I've never met Tom Stewart. I don't know him from Barrow Soap. He looks like a ripping fella. I don't know if you know him.
Ripping fella, know his family.
Yeah.
Great bloke. And I reckon he'd love it too. And he'd be expecting it.
Well, we'll say love it because it comes from an incident that he's not proud of. But I think he accepts it as opposed to, I think he knows it. And it's part of the footy theatre. And I think...
I need to write an article on this to get me angry,
you need to get rolling. But we're going to go to... Wish this match was in Melbourne. How good would it be if it was in Melbourne?
North Melbourne, Port Adelaide. I still think Tasmania's going to absolutely feed it to Jason Horne-Francis. They are, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I mean... During the week, and we love our shelter, but there was a Queensland brewer that tried to put out the ice bath brew.
Lager.
Yeah, got threatened with some legal action by Port Adelaide.
Surely that's Port Adelaide trying to scare a local brewer into not doing it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. That's lighthearted humour, isn't it? I thought it was hilarious.
Well, the lobster tears was embraced by Rory.
Yeah.
But I think, to be fair, Jason's copped a bit more... I want to say abuse. He's copped a lot more flack this season.
So some resilience, seriously.
No, I reckon it was him. My guess is, I don't think he's got anything to do with this. It's a club trying to protect him. I do get it from all parties. But I want to know from you what North Melbourne players, how they're going to react to all this.
They should go at him physically. I hope to God
what does it prove?
Bullshit about... don't get it stuck into players. What about the kids fucking booing this?
Well-being. And
all this bullshit, mate. I hope they go so hard at him physically. He was a number 1 draft pick to their club and he left.
So
doesn't matter why he left. Doesn't matter any of the reasons. Just keep it really simple. It's a huge rivalry game.
You disloyal so-and-so.
Yeah, bloody oath. Yeah. Get into him. If they don't get into him, I think it's weak.
They will.
Weak if they don't get into him. They have to. I'm sorry. If they don't, if you think Alistair Clarkson is sitting there going, hey, boys, stay away from Jason Horne-Francis, you've lost the plot. Seriously.
Put it this way, you haven't heard him say anything about booing this week. Mind you, he's got more issues, including probably presiding over the worst game of football ever seen in the history of footy at Marvel last Sunday between North Melbourne and St Kilda. They kicked 7 points up to half-time. We've been through all this.
North Melbourne are going to get smashed in this game.
They'll get absolutely poleaxed if Port Adelaide's on their game. And you know what? I hope Jason Horne-Francis goes really well. I hope it's a big win for the kid and the team, Port, because they're flying, and North Melbourne are as well. David Noble must be sitting back looking at this saying, well, it's not that easy, is it?
Correct. We both picked Port Adelaide. We'll move on. Hawthorn, I think it's going to be good to watch, so at least a spectacle. Hawthorn v Melbourne, 2:35 MCG. Again, like this is sort of like the Richmond Geelong matchup. I think, with both of these sides at full strength and going well, this is a huge game. But Hawthorn, where they're at, I don't know. Melbourne have the quality in their side to be so far the best team in the competition. It's not funny, but they almost lose to Gold Coast last week.
Yeah, but you don't need to be the best team in May, as you well know. Yeah, I agree with you. They almost coughed it up last week, didn't they? And McPherson kicks the goal. It's, they tied up or whatever they would have been kicking themselves, Melbourne. But they are still a quality side, as I keep mentioning the Queen's birthday match, but I still think that they'll work their way through the season, get a top 4 finish, and that victory over the Gold Coast, albeit not overly convincing. Yes. Sometimes you've got to have those away from home. So they'll take care of Hawthorn. Question whether Jyth comes back into the side. He was rested last week. Luke Bruce, conversely, Melbourne. Well, we won't find out until later this afternoon whether Jacob Van Rooyen will actually be able to take his place in the side.
I hope he does. It's Stephen May's 200th game of AFL footy, so a bit of a milestone game for Stephen, who's obviously been the captain at Gold Coast. Is that right?
Joint captain? Yeah, definitely captain.
Yeah, so, he's been a great player since he's come to that football club, and a big reason why they won the premiership in 2021. So I expect Melbourne to get this done. I expect a more competitive outing for Hawthorn back at home at the MCG, but I think Melbourne wins this pretty convincingly.
Yeah, if what we saw at Optus Stadium with the accountability and defensive pressure at times, Melbourne, they might be able to, have a spell of, a quarter or 20 minutes and really blow the game open.
Since 2020... Christian Petrarca is averaging 30 disposals, 15 contested possessions, 5 clearances, 8 inside 50s against Hawthorn.
And he's still not the best player in the competition.
Expect a big game from him. I'm just saying. He's just been simmering away like a broth or something. I don't know what you do in the kitchen, but is that what simmers?
Not a lot. I reckon Victoria does a lot more than I, as you can tell.
Brisbane v Essendon at the Gabba. Yeah. We both obviously picked Melbourne. Brisbane v Essendon. This is going to be an interesting game.
Yeah, second week on the road for the Bombers. And they've won 5 in a row.
What did they play last week?
They played Port Adelaide on Sunday.
That's stiff, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It's a bit unusual to have to jump on the kite twice in that space of time. Yeah. Brisbane, 5 in a row, arguably, with alongside Collingwood, the form team of the competition, and they are unbeatable almost up at the Gabba. They are unbeatable.
I think so. I'm going to end up picking Brisbane here. Essendon are the lowest pressure side in the AFL, and I think that doesn't hold up at the Gabba. I think Brisbane at the Gabba are a real pressure side because they know if they can put teams under pressure, they fumble, they slip and slide, and it turns it into a shit show, and then Brisbane go about their business on the outside. Bit of a wide ground as well. So, from my experience, Brisbane teams put a lot of pressure on the inside of the game, but then they own the outside of the field. So I think they'll be doing this against Essendon. I actually think Brisbane are going to win this pretty easily.
Yeah, so do I. I think they spread so well at the Gabba. You just on the wings there, you're right, and you've played it there. Josh Dunkley, if he could try and replicate what he did last week, whether that's possible or not, who knows? But
he's one of those guys, Josh Dunkley, that's come into the side this year clearly, and I think we expect a lot from big high-profile recruits like a Josh Dunkley. He's a superstar, comes to a new side in a good midfield, and you think, well, he's just going to make them so much better instantly. And he's had a bit of a slower start, but he's still been performing. He's still does what he's meant to do, but hasn't had those huge standout games, which he did last week. It takes time. It really takes time for new teammates to come into the fold, for you to, as stupid as it sounds, just figuring out what the routine is inside the footy club. Every week that you come in, your locker, the setup, you're out of your routine, and like players are creatures of habit. So, look, I think he'll probably get from strength to strength and be it just such a massive part of their finals run this year, Brisbane, given the way he plays, a contested brand. That's what I really liked from him on the weekend was he just looked really, by the eye test, you'd see how players are moving. He looked like up and about. I think he's starting to hit his straps a little bit. Brisbane, I think, win this pretty easily. Maybe Dane Zorko comes back. Essendon will be without their superstar defender, Jordan Ridley. He'll miss with concussion off the back of the Rioli hit, and I don't think Essendon will get too many back.
No, but what we have seen from Essendon under Brad Scott, they deserve credit for even in defeat against Port Adelaide, even in defeat against Collingwood. They've certainly been alongside St Kilda and Adelaide, the teams that have, one of the teams I think deserves a big tick as we approach the third way part of the season.
Who are you picking?
Brisbane. I've learnt my lesson with I think I tipped Carlton last week. What an idiot! I keep tipping against a team I've backed to win the flag, but they are playing really good footy and they're bound for the top 4, maybe top 2 if they can consolidate on the weekend.
I know you're an odds man, so I know you'll know there's 3 games remaining. Yeah, right? And I know you'll know the odds for each of them.
Yeah.
And you haven't.
No, well, we've got one game.
You haven't released your bottom art roughie of the week yet. Just saying.
Well, I understand that.
Just reminding you. Just thought you might have forgotten.
I'm sitting here next to you. We're talking about these matches. I am very cognizant of what's ahead of me.
Sometimes I actually question that, Skater. Carlton v Western Bulldogs. I need a screen to tell me what's happening, clearly. Carlton v Western Bulldogs, 5:30 Saturday. This is a 50-50 game.
It is. The market suggests this as well, just for what it's worth.
I know.
But this is a bigger game for Carlton than the Bulldogs because of where they're at. They have been...
And expectations, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, go back to the middle of last year and their fall away at the back end of the season, who they've beaten this season.
They're still in the 8.
They're still in the 8, but that's bear in mind, they've got some...
Well, Fremantle finished 5th last year and they're sitting 13th or something.
Yeah, okay. But Carlton are sliding. As we speak, they're sliding. Fremantle are sort of halted.
Meandering.
They're just meandering. Their turnovers... have cost them dearly, and Michael Voss said it last week. Their effort's been there, but their turnovers have been conceding 85 points last round. So that's huge. 85 points. You think if you're kicking 100 points in a game, which is a really good result, 85 of them perhaps coming from that.
I hadn't heard that stat before, but usually what that means, just thinking back to my time as a player, it's 2 things. So clearly your defensive structures behind the ball and your system behind it maybe isn't working as well as you would like. It has a lot to do with the moment. You've heard me speak about that a lot on this podcast, Skeeter, is how quickly are your players, when there is a turnover, because turnovers happen, right? Every team has turnovers.
Yeah.
How quickly can you react? So I think that may be an issue with their midfield in Walsh, Chera, Cripps. If you think about those guys, Walsh is incredibly
very
attacking.
Offensive.
So is Chera.
And
Cripps has never been a big defensive player. So I think that could be an issue. So maybe they need to look at the mix in there.
But you can't change, can you, that quickly, the mindset?
I mean, Chera's had his best 3 weeks period in his career.
Yeah, numbers-wise, he's been really good.
But if they're conceding 85 points off turnover, who gives a shit how many touches he has?
Yeah, and look, the Bulldogs' clearance work, I think they're ranked 3rd in that department this season. So the Bont, he's going to miss Treloar in terms of what he brings to that midfield mix.
Yeah, that's a big injury.
Yeah, no, it is.
Really big injury.
Yeah, so I think if Treloar's playing, Bulldogs are...
Hugo Hagen's out too.
Yeah, so he's officially out?
Yep.
Okay, so that's difficult. That's why Carlton, I think, probably come into this game a bit more. The Bont's the player that obviously I'm got a man crush on this year. I think he deserves to be, if not Brownlow favourite, very close to it.
Yes.
And I hope he wins a Brownlow, to be honest, because I think he's one of those players you look back on and go...
He's been a star.
He's been a star, and deservedly so. I'm tipping the Bulldogs here, just because I don't trust Carlton at the moment.
Yeah, that's a trust factor because on paper I think Carlton should win, but I'm picking the Bulldogs too.
Yeah,
it's not a roughie though.
No, it's not
letting have that.
I'm not. Did I suggest for one moment
So
that
you
it was
might
a
have been
roughie?
trying to lead into it.
No roughie here. I'm tipping the Bulldogs, but again, if you're doing your footy tipping, this is the game. This is the game, a 50-50, which, if you get it right, other blokes and other girls getting it wrong, you're probably going to get a little jump on them.
Adelaide v St Kilda, Sunday, Adelaide Oval. How are we looking at this one, Skater?
Yeah, this is a test for both sides because they're the two improvers, or two of the three big improvers this year, no question about that.
Yes. Adelaide Oval. Both sides, they're trying to prove that they're the real deal. These are two sides that have been outside the 8 last year that have both jumped up into the 8 this year. And I think this game, well, Adelaide's out of it right now, but they're, around abouts. This game is a proving game.
Absolutely. St Kilda have won 2 of their past 3. They've only used 27 players this year, Scully, which...
Wow. Yes. I've looked at the injury list and they've had 0 like 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah,
0.
But 27 players... Remember, their injury list has still been significantly high at the start of the year, but they've obviously...
Is that St Kilda, did you say?
This is St Kilda.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said Adelaide.
Yeah, St Kilda have used 27 players this year, the fewest of any team in the competition. So bear in mind the injury list. So their injury list has gone there, but those guys that have filled the void...
Do you reckon that weighs into Ross Lyon? We've heard Freo players speak about... I've heard him speak about favourites and guys that he's like, well, you're my guy and you're going to play that role. Do you reckon that's a little bit of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Look,
And clearly... choice as well. He probably doesn't have 40 players.
And you can say, mate, this is your role for the next X number of weeks, and if you keep doing it well, the other bloke's not getting in. So maybe there's an aspect. Obviously, it sounds like King's not going to play this week. There's a there's a question mark over when he will get the call up to the AFL side. But no question they would much as make sure that he is 100% right to go. Adelaide have been terrific all season. Look. You couldn't do much more than what they've done over the past 5 or 6 weeks. Very tough to beat in Adelaide. They've got that home ground advantage back to them. They play the ground well. Their midfield's going exceptionally well.
Dawson still continues to have just such a great season. I'm still stuck on the fact that he's captain in his second year. I just think that's incredible. And then the way he's backed it up, like you see some guys get the captaincy and go backwards. He's just playing out of his mind. What a trade that is.
Oh yeah, and Rory Laird just racks up getting numbers. Max Michaelani. I must admit, he's one of those unsung defenders that have just got the job done alongside...
Is he a first year?
I don't think he's a first year. His father's son, I think, under the SANFL.
He's been good.
He's been really good. I mean, as we've mentioned this, Hinge, Butts, Murray.
Yeah, a little bit of arousal over the Adelaide backline.
I'm aroused by them, but I'm actually... This is my bottle mark...
What is?
Roughie of the week.
What is?
St Kilda to beat Adelaide. That's a roughie. It is a roughie.
$2.30 St Kilda. Top 4 to a top 4 side is can someone send? Okay,
it's a roughie. So who's favourite in this game? And by significant.
Bottle Mart roughie of the week. Start your footy weekends at Bottle Mart. Grab your shelters where Bottle Mart has you covered. Like, we love Bottle Mart, but I think we're disrespecting them.
No, we're not. We're not respecting anybody.
Seriously. FootyCast at shelterbrewing.com.au. If anyone has a definition of a roughie, I'd like you to address an email to Mark Reddings and send it in. Because I think you're absolutely off the mark here, Skate.
They're $1.60. They're $1.60.
I know, that's no certainty. And they're a top 4 side, St Kilda.
I don't look at the ladder. I just go on this should be a lay-down misère for Adelaide at home. This is how they've been playing this year. St Kilda would be very lucky to get in 5 goals, and that's why I think they're the roughie of the week.
Don't do that. I'm picking Adelaide for what it's worth.
I actually don't give a shit.
Last game of the week, Collingwood beat GWS, Sunday MCG. Hopefully all following the tips at home. Collingwood GWS. I thought you were leading to tip GWS here. I thought you'd actually left that off.
Mate, I don't know. Can I tell you when I picked my bottle mark roughie of the week?
When?
About 5 seconds before I get to the
game. I know. GWS Collingwood. Do GWS have any chance whatsoever in this game Sunday at the MCG?
Only chance they have is if Toby Green is declared fit to play.
Right.
Yes. They were pretty brave last week. In fact, I can't remember them. I'm sure they have been, but against the Eagles, they were, when I say touched up, they were beaten by 4 or 5 goals, I think. Mm-hmm. But they have been... Adam Kingsley, the results haven't been all W's.
Yeah.
But, beaten by 15 by the Bulldogs.
They've won 3 games this year.
All of those games. Hawthorn.
Yes.
A last gasp thriller. Adelaide in round 1, they came from the clouds.
Right.
I think it's... and the Sydney Swans.
Yes.
And that was Toby Green magic at the end. So nothing's come easy for Adam Kingsley in his first year as coach.
He'd be in trouble if he lost all those 3, though.
Yeah, well...
Because they were very easily could have gone the other way.
Totally.
Hawthorn and the Sydney game.
They could have, donuts on the board.
I actually would have been on the money if my pick I picked them for wooden spoon.
Woulda, coulda. So you're going through all the matches that they... Anyway,
who's going to win?
To be fair, Collingwood wins. And we've spoken so much about Magpies. Player availability. Here's one for you. I think if Scotty Pendlebury
yes,
and Collingwood win on the weekend, he overtakes Kevin Bartlett as the player to have the most number of wins ever at the Melbourne Cricket Ground.
Really?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a great record. And Scotty Pendlebury.
Unsurprising given how much of a legend of the game he is.
Yeah,
but
and KB, of course.
Start.
KB played as Richmond, their home ground being there. Had such a great record. So Scotty Pendlebury, I think, barring a disaster, gets that record to himself on the weekend.
I'll give you a random stat. Mason Cox, our friend Mason, he's won a hit out from 55% of ruck contests he's been in, the second highest in the AFL. Why don't they play him in the ruck more?
Good question. He's more a forward ruck, isn't he, than a ruck forward?
Yeah. Like they started Kruger in the ruck on the weekend.
Do you rate Mason Cox, and seriously, as a genuine bona fide player? For instance, just for argument's sake, if Nick Natanui retires at the end of this year, is he a player that you'd want as your first ruck?
No.
Okay.
I still think he struggles around the ground, and he can be hot and cold.
Footy nous?
Yeah, and that's understandable. It's not a criticism, but it's factual.
Yeah.
If he could improve his consistency, which I think he probably has, you think about it. He's definitely tall.
He is.
He is tall.
And he's talented. I mean, the guy's got some...
Oh, mate, if he can do what he's done in games,
prelim final, he's
Queen's birthday prelims, all that grand final. He played well in stages in that grand final as well. So, but it's a no from me.
Picking Collingwood.
Yeah, so am I. Socials, Shelter FootyCast, footycast@shelterbrewing.com.au is our email. Skeeter's got a 2-day countdown before he can get a shelter into him, and he cannot wait.
And I've also got a quick question for you. Now, this is a legitimate question. Now,
is it a legitimate question?
It's a legitimate question. You can take the piss or whatever. But I went to a movie with my wife last night called Love Again, which was a chick flick, which, it was...
Did you pick that?
Thanks to Sony and Kathy for giving the invite. No, I didn't pick it. I got invited to it. Now, I also accepted invite to go to a John Farnham documentary movie tonight as well, down at Innaloo. The only issue is, after I accepted, and I've said for 2 people, my wife now has to work Victoria, Country Road. My daughters, who I asked, said no. I asked a couple of mates, would you like to come? They said unavailable. So I'm now left with the possibility of going to a movie by myself tonight. Is that a complete loser scenario for me?
I don't know how many ways I can take this. One, you haven't invited me. Here.
Well, I've only,
what's it called? What are you saying?
A John Farnham documentary.
Oh,
You're 34.
God.
You couldn't give a flying. I know that. So that's what I'm saying to you. I am trying to work out if I walk in there alone today with popcorn and say chop on.
You can't do that.
Is that a bad look?
What time is it?
At 6:30.
No, if it was like if it was at 2 o'clock, I'd give it a pass. Like as in
some dodgy men's cinema. No, I'm not doing that.
I'm not sure what the dodgy men's cinema is, but no, 2 p.m. afternoon on a weekday.
So I can't walk in there tonight with my head held high.
I wouldn't have thought. You're not heading into a nightclub by yourself either. You got to have friends, mate.
It's more like sitting in a restaurant by yourself eating. I find that a bit strange.
Some people do it.
No, I get it. But I'm asking you as a mate, as a confidant, to maybe just give me some advice. Would I just don't turn up? Because she knows if I don't turn up, because I said to her last night, I feel a bit strange coming by myself because I haven't got any friends to come with me.
Just don't go. You can't go, mate. You absolutely can't go. Jaden, no, you can't go. You can't go.
Victoria, my wife, says I've got to go because the promoter was there last night, and she said,
no. But how many celebrity lists are you on?
No.
Like, what's going on here?
I've been to the movies twice in 2 nights. I haven't been to the movies for 2 years, so don't worry.
You're going to Melbourne with invites, and you're going to Lords. When are you going?
End of June.
Okay, we'll have to get a replacement here on the FootyCast.
Well, what about wishing me good luck over there?
Go fuck yourself. How's that sound?
Anyway, John Farnham, Docker. If I go tonight, and I've got to still weigh that up, Scully says I'm a loser, and I'm happy to wear that.
I'm with your daughters on this one, mate. You're a loser. See you next week.